Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel. This is going to be part 3 of my start to finish series for this coffee themed journal. I am going to be creating some tags today. So I've pulled out some papers from the 6x6 paper pad, and I have a couple that have the cutter parts, and I'm going to be using those as pieces. And then I also have these pieces, which were actually some offcuts from the larger 12x12 pages, because I have also been working on a smaller journal. So this is roughly like 5 by 6.5, and it's got a larger spine, and I'm going to have 3 signatures in this one. I've just been working on off camera on this one. Let me know if you'd like to see me work through that process as well. This is the one that's actually going to have some vintage paper mixed in and everything. I'm trying to keep true to just the coffee collection for the other journal, but that second journal is going to have a bunch of vintage paper in there as well, just because I can't help myself. I love vintage paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a couple of these tags. These just happen to be like the perfect shape of offcuts for tags, and so but there are several of them that have a really dark background. And so I'm adding those to some coffee dyed paper. I'm just going to stick that under my mat here so that they can dry. And that way the backside can now have the coffee dyed paper, so you can have some writing space on the back of those tags. And I am going to kind of set out all of these offcuts and try and get an idea for how I want to decorate them. So I'm treating this almost like a mass make while I'm working with this. This is the kind of the benefit of working with a collection like this, is that everything is going to very easily coordinate. And so I'm just going to go through some of the ephemera pieces, and I'm going to just try and find things that I think will fit on there. There's going to be a few things that I need to adjust a little bit, but just in terms of like color and pattern, you can see a lot of the colors that I'm dealing with over there on the left. Those are like the 2 navy blue and the black. The back sides of those are the brighter colors, like the pink and the, other patterns that you can actually, write on. And so I'm going to decorate the front. So I'm just trying to pull out some different pieces. Some of them obviously are going to be too wide for these tags, and I'll save those for some journaling cards that I make down the road. But I'm trying to pull some pieces that are large enough that they take up a good bit of space on here, because these are about 6 inches tall, these tags. And so I'm just trying to find a balance of things that have enough, visual interest and visual weight, and that I can actually use. So I've pulled out a bunch of things you can kind of see here. I also have this cut apart sheet that's got a journaling card on it that's really 3x4, but I think I can trim it down. And so, don't be afraid when you have ephemera pieces or even journaling cards like this in the little cut aparts, like just cut them up, make them your own. And so I'm going to be trimming those down. This one, I really I have an idea for this one. That's actually going to be the only one that I make that's not technically a tag. It will end up as a journaling card of sorts, but I will show you that down the road. So the first thing I'm going to do, now that I kind of have everything assigned to its tag, is I'm going to go through and streamline this process. So I am going through and trimming all of the edges. I have a little punch that makes the corners for the tag shape, and then I'm going to ink all of the base parts of the tags and the ephemera pieces that I think I'm going to be using. I'm just going to make a little stack of them, and I'm going to go through that way. I'm not having to get out my ink pad every other second and whatever. I'm just kind of going through, and there will be other things that need to be inked along the way. And I may even trim down some of these tags. You'll actually see me do that. But this just kind of gives me a head start on having everything kind of ready. And obviously I didn't make you watch me do all of that. But I'm going to start with this black card, or this black tag here. It's pink on the back side, so you can write on the pink side. And I punched a hole just using another tag that I had as kind of a template. And now I need to decorate this. So I'm actually pulling out a really old punch that I've had for years. But I saw Rachel at Roxy's Creations do this not that long ago, and I was like, oh, I should really get out my punches and use some of those. And so this is just going to add another kind of decorative element down to the bottom of this tag. But I really wanted to use this label on there, and I did not like how this all looked. So I'm actually going to trim down the top part of the tag so that I can make this just a little bit smaller. Now I'm going to go back through and reshape the top section. but I like this much better. So some of these tags I did make a little bit shorter, and some of them I kept pretty long because I'm dealing with that journal that is, 8.5 inches tall. And so I want to make sure that, the things that I'm putting in the pockets are going to fill up a good bit of space. But for this one, it will either go in the smaller journal or in one of the smaller pockets that's in that other journal. I haven't quite decided yet, but I know that I'm going to need a lot of tags. I know I'm going to need a lot of pockets, and I know I'm going to need a lot of journaling cards. So one of the best ways whenever I'm doing this, especially if I'm working on multiple journals at a time, is to kind of mass make a bunch of things all at once. And so I'm starting this with doing some tags. Now, this is the one that I'm just going to trim this down. I really love how this looked on that green paper, but I wanted to add something else back behind there to kind of anchor it and to bring all of those colors together. So I pulled out one of the decorative papers. I'm just tearing this down, and then I really like that torn edge. I did ink this off camera as well, but and then I'm just gonna glue this down, and I will trim off the little edge pieces that are kind of sticking out. This just helps anchor that that little skinny section. And because these tags I think are about 2.5 inches wide, there's not a whole lot of space. Normally when I create a tag, I will kind of have things sort of like in one corner or, sort of offset, but there's really just not a lot of room to do that with these. So a lot of my images have to be kind of in the middle, and so I have to find a way to try to balance that out. So I am using this pattern paper here to sort of anchor that, and then this other piece of pattern paper, I actually literally just fussy cut one of the little coffee signs out of it, and I just think that looks cute as a little label. And then I'll probably add some fabric or something to the top for a pull. And this one, I thought originally I was going to just kind of use that hole and punch a hole in the bottom section and kind of use them together. And I will do that with some of these other ones, but I didn't like the way that this one was shaped, like a half circle. And then with the shape of the top of this tag, I just didn't really like how that looked. So I just went ahead and trimmed that off. And it does leave me a little bit of a gap kind of up there at the top, which we will deal with as well. And then I went to the sticker sheet. I have the chipboard stickers as well. And I pulled a little section of one of the trims that's on there. And I put that just to kind of anchor this green piece. And you can kind of see I did put this almost all the way over to the right edge. And then I'm pulling in another one of those stickers from the sticker sheet, and I will just trim off the excess of that. And then I will probably put something at the top. Most of these will end up with toppers at some point. Sometimes that's kind of a decision I don't make until down the road. This is one where I want to take advantage of the shape of these two tags being the same. So I'm just going to add just a little drop of glue up there to hold that in place while I'm kind of fiddling with the rest of it. I'm going to punch through and have, so that the hole is in the same place. And I was trying to figure out something to sort of balance the bottom half of this. And I decided to use another one of my punches. This is one of my favorite ones. I like the different size little holes that it makes. And so I'm just going to go through here and punch this one. I think this sort of helps break up some of the visual weight of having all of this really dark part of this tag down at the bottom. So having some of that black in there, the holes just kind of help it to lighten it up again. And then I'm going to add a little bit of this striped pink fabric that I had in my stash. I'm just going to tuck this underneath here, but this is kind of a thinner fabric. So I'm not using Fabri-Tac. I'm actually still using my art glitter glue here, but I am making sure to just kind of smooth it all the way across so that it doesn't like seep through the fabric and leave lines or where you can tell that it has been glued. It's just kind of a trick whenever you're dealing with a thinner fabric to do that. And then I'm going to finish gluing down this tag here, and then I will also add just a little bit of that same fabric through that hole up at the top. I just want to try to kind of tie all of the elements together here, and I am not tying a knot or anything. I'm just going to kind of thread that through and use my tiny attacher to staple it. That is a look I really love, and so I use my tiny attacher for like tag toppers quite a bit. I just like how that looks. And then moving on to this next card, back to this tag that I did earlier, actually, I'm going to use just a little tiny piece of this fabric that I had left over, and I'm gonna use that for a topper too, and I just stapled that one as well. And then now I want to work on this one. I have an idea for this card. I want to use that paper in the background that says coffee all over it, and then I'm gonna use one of those what should be tags, but I'm actually gonna create sort of a belly band. And so this, I don't know if I'm gonna use this as a full-on like page pocket situation, but I know that this will go in the larger journal. I am trimming off the very top of that where the branding strip was, and then I did trim it down just ever so slightly, maybe a half an inch or less. And so I'm going to glue this blue section down so that the green is face up, but I'm gluing this in the middle, just at the top and the bottom, so that this section actually becomes a belly band. And that way I can tuck a journaling card in there or another tag or whatever. So I can then add this ephemera piece over the top because I really love this little journaling card that I'm just using as a focal image. And then depending on how I glue that down in the journal, it will be either a top loading or side loading pocket as well. So just really added a lot of extra space in there for some journaling. And so that's really important to me whenever I create my journals, is to have a lot of little places and places to tuck things. And it's just part of the journaling process that I really enjoy. So this next one has a little pink label, or a little pink tag, excuse me. And I really liked the quote on it. And so obviously it's very small for this large tag. So I'm going to kind of balance this out by having one of those frames. And this frame had a quote inside it. You could technically, punch that out and use those as two separate elements, but I liked them together, so I glued them down together. And then I punched the hole in this tag so that I could adhere this other tag as well. So I'm just tying this on with some baker's twine. I doubled up this baker's twine, and that way I could run that through, and I'm actually going to make a square knot here at the top. So that little tag is actually not glued down. It's just kind of floating on there. And I think that just gives it a little bit more interest, just almost like it's a tag topper, little tiny tag. But anyway, just a decorative element, a different way to do that. So now I want to move on to this other tag. And this one, again, because this is dark, it's kind of heavy. So I decided to sort of break that up by adding some of the pattern paper to this one as well. And I did use the 6x6 paper pad for this, because the great thing about having both sets of pattern paper is that they also reduce the scale of the image. So it's not just, a 12 by 12 that's cut in half or, in quarters. It's actually, the scale has been reduced. So now I have these little tiny coffee cups, which are so cute. And then, but this label really wasn't standing out off of the background. So I'm just going to add a strip of this brown cardstock. This was, again, from something that I trimmed down. I save all of those pieces while I'm working on a journal like this, because these things come in really handy. And especially for this particular journal, because I am really trying to keep just solely with the actual kit elements for this first journal. The smaller journal, I'm going to have all kinds of things in it. But the first journal, I decided to go ahead and accept the challenge to just only use the paper collection in there. And so I'm using all the bits and pieces for everything. So I just added a little bit to anchor that other little label. And now I have pulled these tags with the coffee dyed paper on the back. I trimmed them down, and now I'm going to use a couple of the larger elements from the sticker sheet. I'm going to go through this process kind of the same way. I really loved that large sticker, so I'm going to put that on some pink paper, and I will trim that down in a minute. I'm just kind of getting a rough idea for some of these cards here. I did the same thing with this other green label sticker. I put it on some darker paper just for the contrast, because now I'm dealing with white backgrounds. And so I'm just trying to decide which one of those I like that on better. And I'm going to go through the same process of just kind of pulling elements, piecing them together, and then gluing them down. And so there's nothing really different to how I was doing the other ones, other than these just have coffee dyed paper on the back. This one I am putting over to the side, this little green label. I did back that with some darker paper as well, just again to give it a little bit of an anchoring, and just to help it pop up off of the background some. And so this one I I keep going back and forth if I want to add anything to it. Right now I'm just going to leave it like it is. I really actually kind of like it, but I may add a label or something. We'll see. And then I did pull in some of the other coffee themed paper that I had in my stash for some of these tags as well. Those coffee bean papers are in the journal also as pockets. And so it's helpful to kind of repeat those elements. And then here I just added these pieces. I did add just one little tiny cup sticker here down in the bottom left-hand corner. I needed to pull that pink down the tag some because I had the green at the bottom and the pink at the top, and to me, it just kind of helped having that element repeated. So some of these, like I said, will get some other fabrics and things, and that will happen kind of down the road. But I just want to do a quick share of everything that I created. So as I was going through this, I decided, I really do want to add a little bit of that fabric to this tag. And what I noticed is having some of these, like the pink fabric at the top of these darker tags, really just helped kind of lighten them up. So you're going to see me do this a couple of different ways as I'm sharing these final flip through of these tags. But I just decided to add that little piece at the top, and then here are some of the other tags that are completed. And then this one is one where I decided it also needed a little pull tab, and so I'm going to just cut a little piece of fabric here, and then I will use my tiny attacher for this. So sometimes I make the holes and do it that way. Sometimes I just staple the fabric on. There's no rhyme or reason. It just whatever seems right at the time. So, and then this is the one that's going to be that little belly band. And then here's another one where it just didn't feel finished until I had some little pull fabric at the top, and it really does help just kind of brighten everything up because it's, pretty dark having that black background, even though I like the contrast between the dark background and all of the bright elements on the pastel pink and everything on the front. I really love this color palette of this collection. So anyway, that's pretty much it for me. So if you liked this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. All my links will be in the description. And until next time, bye.